I want to find out if that person is all about money. That's one of the things that turns me off. It's all about how much. I had a guy walk in one day and was like, I want to come to work for you. Um, I just want you to teach me how to make $1 million. And that doesn't work for me in my culture. I didn't build a business focused on money. I built a business focused on doing the right thing for homeowners. You're not out there on a job site seeing how they're treating your customers. So I always use the Chick-fil-A mentality. That's how I want you to talk to my customers. So you got to be cautious about who you hire to represent your brand, because that's absolutely what the homeowner is seeing as your brand at the door, whoever has your name and shirt on, and how they're being treated.
Welcome to the Roofing Success Podcast. I'm Jim Aline, and I'm here to bring you insights from top leaders in the roofing industry to help you grow and scale your roofing business. Jon Abernathy, good to have you on, man.
Thanks for having me.
My now fellow coach in the Roofing Strong Alliance. Love it, man.
It's going to be a good time, man.
That's right. For people that have not heard, the Roofing and Solar Reform Alliance is now part of the TAMKO family as the Roofing Strong Alliance, and we're really excited to get this going. Jon, for people who haven't come across you in the industry, man, what got you into this business? What got you into roofing?
I started I was 21, so I kind of started moving in the space. It's I think 1999, 2000, started tinkering in housing. My dad and grandfather always built spec houses to sell, here and there. Growing up, got to be part of that. Spent a lot of time on the job site. Really kind of liked that blue collar side. I enjoyed it, just being involved in that, watching things being built. So we actually started Abernathy Construction in 2001. That's when I got my first business license, and just building spec homes and as done some spec homes, small projects on people's homes, stuff like that. Kind of back and forth between housing and then start putting on roofs. And I would say it's been a long time ago. It's been 25 years. 2006 or 7, started kind of navigating more. I was a framing contractor, started really liking the framing side. So we kind of started building framing crews. And then I remember I would roof the houses I framed. And I actually worked with some other builders and would end up roofing all their houses. And so over the years, we did a lot of construction work, kind of moved into the remodel space, siding, windows, roofing, and just continued to navigate and until I ended up almost completely in the roofing space, just because I was a process guy. And I figured that it was a lot easier to streamline processes around roofing than it was around remodels and construction work. And I wanted a model that I could streamline, that was, I could control my destiny and profitability, and roofing is where it was at. So we continued on through about 2016. It's kind of funny how I ended up where I'm at today. In Joplin, Missouri is TAMKO headquarters. So we, in 2016, moved to Owens Corning, started selling Owens Corning products. And by 2023, we own somewhere, according to them, around the 20% market share with roofs that came into the market. With Abernathy Roofing, had built it out to multiple locations in the area, and anyways, ended up getting in a conversation with TAMKO at the time, just kind of moving forward, and they had seen my success in the market and said, "Could you help us, consult us, or kind of help us build out a better program for contractors?" Like, it's something they've never really operated in that space. They were mainly, for a long time, just a new construction shingle builder. So I went and looked at some of the new products, early 2024, with the Titan XT, and then they were just fixing to release just released the Stormfighter Flex Class 4. And I liked the innovation in them. I liked the quality and where their minds were and where they were going. And I was like, I think that I can help you and come in and build a program that kind of helps contractors on the educational side, and that gives them some exclusivity in the marketplace as they grow inside of the program. So that's kind of where I'm at today, is kind of spent 2024 helping reinvent the TAMKO Contractor Edge program, and to what it is today. And then I spend a lot of time now just coaching contractors, helping them, what we always say, me and John Bros say it all the time and laugh about it, not to pay the dumb tax.
That's right.
So there's a lot of resource today, something I'll call out for contractors that are new to the space or working in the space, that we didn't have back in 2001. and and or even really in 2005 or 10, we didn't have the social media like we do today. We didn't have the YouTube presence. There wasn't guys like Adam to kind of help businesses. So you just had to figure it out on your own. And I call it the school of hard knocks. So I get to experience that for years. So we always joke and say we could probably tell you more of what not to do than what to do. Because like I said, we've made a lot of, luckily made better more good decisions than bad that sustained us over the years and allowed us to stay in business and scale our business.
Yeah, or the losses were not as good as the gains on the good decisions, right? Like, sometimes you can make more bad decisions, but still gain if you could cut your losses soon, right? Like, if you
You got
don't
to move
wait too
quick.
long to cut your losses, right? Like, if you can understand, "Boy, that was a bad decision, I gotta move on," right?
Yep.
One of the things that makes me think about we were talking, we were talking before about hiring and building the team, and especially with sales reps and getting them trained up. And one of the points that you made was, in paying that dumb taxes, how many reps, you hired that, early on, especially that it was like, man, we let them sit around too long. We didn't, what are your thoughts on let's say, how can a roofing contractor be successful in building a sales team from the hiring and recruiting standpoint, and then maybe into training also?
I think, be slow to hire and really, really fast to fire. I've made the mistakes where when we decided somewhere in that 2015, 16 mark, I'd been in the industry a long time. I'd been more on the blue collar side literally you'd find me on job sites nailing shingles down or, helping frame a house. I mean, I have a lot of experience in the trades. I thought the right thing to do was fill a room full of people. And so when you start really tracking data, and we got very, very good at tracking data and understanding it and success, what I had was 15 people sitting in a room and three of them doing 80% of everything. So it's not about, I mean, I would say to anybody, it's not about quantity, it's more about quality. And then I've seen people get emotional and hang on to people that are bad apples because I think the number one
Mm,
thing in success is culture. If you don't build a strong culture, and building a strong team with culture takes the right fit. A lot of people will hire because somebody's just a good salesman or this or that. And I've seen both sides. I've seen really good sales guys that do not fit the culture and they damage the whole company holistically. And I've seen, the opposite. I've seen guys that come in and really are team players and build up over time and do very, very well. So I think just focused on your hiring on culture and being really slow. And then if you see somebody that's a bad apple that's not following the processes, I don't care how good they are, get them out. If you're trying to play a long-term play, it takes Rome wasn't built in a day. So it's okay to
yeah.
lose somebody you think that can just sell really well because it'll save you a lot of headaches later if they don't fit your culture. Also, I think that training for reps and people in the company, making sure everybody's on the same page and everybody's educated is a big deal right now. It's bigger than ever. You take the hell markets, which I'm right in the middle of the central hell market in Missouri, and used to people really didn't care. Homeowners didn't care, right? They had a $500 deductible. A lot of the guys out there would waive them, or 1,000. I remember the good old days back in 2000, probably 17 to 19, where you could get anything approved from insurance. If I could find a ding on a piece of gutter, I'd get overhead and profit. And it was just, easy peasy. Well, today the deductibles have went up so high, homeowner premiums, that I always say when people pay, they pay attention. Homeowners are have to start writing big
Mm,
checks. So the more you know, and the more you can go in from a consultative style sales approach to the homeowner and educate them, the more success you're going to have because they're paying attention now because the homeowner is now becoming the customer in these markets to where used to the customer was really the insurance company. They're the one paying the bill. So they're starting to pay
definitely.
attention. So the more you know, the more you can learn and be educated around products, programs, warranties, like I said, asphalt quality products to help the homeowner get the best bang for the buck and actually consult them, the more wins you're going to have.
That's fantastic. Let's dig in a little bit. Man, the slow to hire, fast to fire kind of analogy, it's we hear it all the time,
Yep.
right? But what does that mean? Let's talk about you're a process guy. What does that mean in practice, in process? What is it from a job posting to an interview to like what what should, how detailed, what steps, what things have you done? What funny questions do you ask that maybe give you some insight? Like, let's walk through that. Like, how do you find that person first? How do you determine if they're the right person to even put the time and effort into training them?
I mean, I want to find out if that person is all about money. That's one of the things that turns me off. It's all about how much. I had a guy
Mm,
walk in one day and was like, I want to come to work for you. Um, I just want you to teach me how to make $1 million. And that doesn't work for me in my culture. I didn't build a business focused on money. I built a business focused on doing the right thing for homeowners. And I always had a goal greater. I always tell guys, when they come in and sell, um, I want to see that they have goals outside of just making money. Like, what are you going to
mm,
invest in it? Is it your family? Is it your kids? Is it a nonprofit? Is it what are you really passionate about? Because I'll tell you something about money is if your whole focus on making money, once you make it, you're done. So there has to be something
yeah,
greater than you. That's the way I always taught my guys that you're invested in, that you're looking at in the future that's not just about making money. And if I seen the guys every time that were just all about money, they were always my problem children every time. And so we always made it, I always made sure that culture fit. They had something more valuable than money is what their why was. And so I would determine that.
yeah,
And if it was just all about money, I'm just telling you, I'd walk them out the door. I would not hire them. We always like to do personality assessments too on people. I like to use the color code. I think it's a good one. Actually, TAMKO uses that. I thought that was pretty intriguing when I went. Already knew my color, just to help people understand how to work together as a team. And then it kind of gives you some insight on who you're hiring, right? You want to know their personality and how to work. So like when you assess personalities, you get everybody involved. People learn how to work better in a culture, and they look how to work better as a team. And you always got to think as an owner too. Anybody, and I learned this lesson the hard way by hiring a couple of wrong guys one time. You're not out there on a job site seeing how they're treating your customers. So I always use
mm,
the Chick-fil-A mentality. That's how I want you to talk to my customers. So you got to be cautious about who you hire to represent your brand because that's absolutely what the homeowner is seeing is your brand at the door, whoever has your name and shirt on and how they're being treated. So, like, you got to keep it really close. I would always call homeowners and get feedback on all. I mean, data is so important when it comes to these things because you need to have data all the way from the first appointment all the way to the final install from homeowners on their customer experience. You need to analyze that data and you can figure out real quick who's doing their job right, how we're performing as a
nice.
company and improve on that data. And I think that's where a lot of companies don't do a great job that I've seen is really tracking that data and then really analyzing it and reacting to it. And it's
Yeah,
just, it
for
takes
sure,
time to do that. Yep.
for sure. You said money is one that disqualifies them, right? If they're
Yep.
too money focused, that disqualifies them. In your For your culture, what qualifies them? What would they
Honest,
say to you that makes you go, "Yeah, you feel like the right person?"
well, number one is family. Like, I always like to hire people. Not saying I wouldn't hire somebody that wasn't, but that had a wife and a family and cared for them. One of the things that was unique about us for years is opposite of what you'd probably see in roofing is I didn't want people working Saturdays, Sundays. I wanted them, we were faith based. I wanted them to be with their family, be able to, if they want to go to church, and spend time with their family. I've seen too many guys burn out trying to work 7 days a week. So we always took the weekends off. And that's the opposite of what usually happens in a roofing business. That's what we decided, that we wanted for our company. And like I said, I think it's just that culture. We would always pull together, do events, do things together as a team. And people that like one of the red flags, people that wouldn't connect to that, like wouldn't show up to meetings, wouldn't show up at the office, wouldn't be involved in the community things we were doing because the community was always important to me. So if you can't give an hour or two to go volunteer handing out backpacks for kids before they go to school, or you can't be involved in some of the ministries and things that we supported in the community, then you're probably not a great fit, or you probably don't have a heart for where we're going and what we're trying to do, being more community focused than we are just about going out and making a paycheck. I think that's what
Yeah,
built our company in our market is everybody knew us for always giving back, always doing things that supported, we're the company that supported your local ball team. We're the company that came out and helped feed for people that were less fortunate. Always make sure the kids has presence. We started a group called Operation Roof for Kids. So like I wanted my team to be involved in those things, if that makes sense.
Mm.
That was a big
Mhm.
piece. It was a big deal to me. So anybody that would just disconnect and it seemed like we're always the ones that were always complaining over a commission being off by $5 or, and it wasn't where my heart was. And we would literally I've taken some pretty heavy hitting sales guys and walked them out the door and hugged their neck just because they didn't fit. Just being
Yeah.
honest. That's
A
just my mind. That's how I thought.
and and you have to, right? And it's a scary thing though, right? Like, it's a scary thing for someone to do. It's like, wow, that's a lot of revenue walking out of the door. Like,
Didn't matter.
that's taking care. That's right. It's a scary, scary thing. What was the impact on the team from those decisions that you made?
It really shows we led by example. So like if you're gonna act this way, you're gonna be a bad apple. Now, here's the thing that was unique about it. Most of the time, I'm still friends with some of those people today. I was able to do it in a loving way and say, even if it was a sales rep, that wasn't producing. Like, in sales, you still have to produce something. And they weren't following the process of what we knew. If you followed this process, you would be successful. We would, if they weren't following the process, I'd hug their neck. And actually, I always felt like I was helping them out. I remember one time a
Mhm.
guy was in here, he came into sales, we hired him, he was not successful. Not saying he didn't work hard, but I asked him one day, I was like, "What are you passionate about?" He's like, "I really want to be a chef." And I'm like, "Wow, I did not know that." So I made a phone call, hooked him up with a buddy, because he was passionate about cooking food. It's like, it was bizarre. And guess what? He's still there today and he's successful doing that. So it's sometimes we hold people back from being successful just because we want to put bodies in a room because we think bodies create numbers. And it's just not true.
Mhm.
I can tell you in 20 years, it's not true. It has to be somebody that's good at what they do, that's passionate about what they do, that's dug into the long term vision of the company. They have to be dug into our vision and get behind us, or it doesn't matter who you weren't a good fit. And so we were always able to maintain a good quality of people in the room because everybody was bought in. And the first time signs we seen of that they weren't, we would, like I said, we would get rid of them quick. Now, I learned that by not getting rid of them quick. Keep that in mind. Like I said,
That's right.
I don't know everything. I've paid my fair dumb tax over the years. And you just kind of, as you grow in business, you get more experience. You learn what not to do and how to react, faster.
How long did you wait? What that was too long. Like, what was the lesson? What was the where did that come from?
I had a really
I'm
great
sure it
sales.
was a couple. It could have been a couple of them, but
It was a couple. Yeah, I had some really great. Um, I see this all the time. It's not just me. It's a lot of guys in the industry that have to
it's
go through
everywhere.
this.
Yeah.
You find a great sales guy that can sell a lot. They can really boost revenue quick, right? Um, we had one time that literally would always get between my wife and I. We were, I would fight for him because, hey, he's a great salesman. Over on this side, the culture wasn't good. He was doing things, saying things that we didn't believe in. This has been a long time ago, but mentally, I kept him going because I'm like, man, he's producing $4 or $5 million a year, right?
Mhm.
And finally, the day that we finally split and got rid of that, it gave so much relief to the business. And what's crazy is all these other guys that once he disappeared because he was really hurting the culture, they made up the difference in numbers that year. So you think this one person is you can't live without him. What you'll find is the rest of your team, the culture gets so much better. They just kind of jumped in, picked up the slack, and went and produced the difference. So we had even, I think, a little bit even a better year than what we were projected to have after he was gone. How do you do that? That's where I learned that lesson.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's a It's crazy, right? Like, it's something that I'm sure there's someone listening that's struggling with this.
Yep.
And, maybe it doesn't turn out exactly the way that John has experienced it in his business, but, what do you think? Did you make additional hires that helped fill the gap, or was it just the team just because you get of the amount of business you guys had coming in, they filled the gap? What was the like, what also helped?
I think it was number one is nobody really, the rest of the team couldn't get engaged with this guy because he was all about himself.
Mm,
So when he disappeared, it allowed them, they seen opportunity to move up, to take some responsibility. So I think that was the biggest piece. Obviously, we were always hiring if it was the right candidate. So like that's one thing
Yeah.
I see people fell in. Like really, when I look at some of the big companies, even today, the things they have unique, like so we kind of went through this phase, right, where everything was about sales and marketing, and it still is to a certain degree. But then I'm seeing more now of success, and you're becoming a full-time recruiting and onboarding company. Sometimes you have to hire, you do sometimes have to hire several. You try to do your best. I think the rule of thumb is what is it? You hire 10 to get one or two that actually stick. I mean, I think that's
Yeah.
about right from what I've seen. So I think you're constantly trying to hire and make good decisions, and you got to keep that channel open because I think it's always important to keep fresh blood in there just to keep your veteran guys on their toes too. A lot of time bringing in fresh
Definitely.
blood brings in, if you get the right guy, new excitement to the room and creates some healthy competition and kind of keeps the numbers rolling and keeps guys out there, excited and moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. And then where have you had the most success finding people?
That's a
Like,
great
is it
question.
Indeed? Is it in your community or the relationships you've built? Like, I've heard, I mean, I know some companies I've talked to guys on the podcast, man, that they fill rooms and they recruit like, it's crazy. Like, they have an event every month or week or quarter, and they fill a room and, see kinda, get people engaged. There's others you know, who only recruit very specific people from very specific jobs. And they're like, I only recruit firefighters. I only recruit, youth sports coaches. I only, where was that? Where did you find like the best people that were the right culture fit for your business?
I mean, we used Indeed a little bit, but not really. That's not really where I found my best candidates. Actually, that's where at one point in time we got the wrong guy in the seat, and he
Mhm.
was a scammer, and he was going Indeed, and he would go work for a
Mm,
company. And I mean, I've had some bad luck with Indeed. Not saying people haven't had good. I just have some in the best.
that's right.
I think my best hires have been like finance directors in like the car business. Like I've had a couple of
Mm,
guys like that were just heavy producers because they understood financing, and that's something we were big on. They knew numbers really well. They could catch on quick. They were, I mean, you got to think. Let's just think about it like this: if you're a finance director at a car lot, where you really make your money is moving enhanced warranties or warranty movement, and then you've got like 30 minutes when somebody walks in the room to make them trust you and buy something from you. And so those
mm.
guys were always the best at really explaining to the homeowners and getting buy-in on the things that I thought were good for homeowners. So I would say the top two, looking back over the last, say, 15, 20 years, guys I had came from that realm. As far as heavy hitters, guys that can move a lot of business. I
Yeah.
think I've had a few actual pastors that have come to work that had a background in ministry, and some of them done very, very well just because they're relational people. I mean, people buy from people. They don't necessarily always buy from companies. You learn that.
But
It stinks as an owner. You're like, oh, people want to buy from my brand. Um, I think it is a combination of two things. One, brand awareness. It's one thing we spent literally millions of dollars on over the last 2 decades. It's one thing if a guy's out knocking on a door with an Abernathy roofing shirt on, it's pretty easy to get to the kitchen table because they know us. That's where brand
yeah,
awareness. I think it's a two-sided thing. So it's another thing to go work for a company that's not aware, nobody knows the brand, and go knock on that same door. You don't get the same results. People are a little leery, but if they had our brand, they'd walk you right in their house and give you a glass of tea, right? So I
that's
think it's a
right.
combination between having the right people to represent you that are good with homeowners and then the brand. I think both matter. You got to have them both.
How do you think that how do you think that brand gets built?
Um, a lot of depending on what your goal is, right? And I always tell people you ought to build a brand to sell, no matter what. It ought to be built that's sellable, regardless if you're paying or not. But if it's a long term approach, I think it's many, many, many years of doing the right things in the community,
Mm,
relationships. Like that's where we really built a lot of brand. A combination of top mind awareness marketing, in my opinion, um, to create brand awareness, being out there in the community as owners. I think that owners, once they get to a certain part, to spend most of their time out in front of people. Like Any owner, and here's the thing, any of the big relationships, I'll give you this. Any big relationships that you have, like maybe it's an insurance agent, maybe it's a real estate agent that sends a lot of business, don't ever pass those off to sales reps. You can have them go service a customer, but any of the large relationships, I would tell anybody that, where I've learned from experience, I've seen tons of people really have issues with that, is taking those relations. The owner starts in, they build the brand, right? And then they pass all the relationships they have off to sales reps, and that rep leaves and they take those relationships. I'm sorry, any
Mm.
sales rep listeners, I'm sorry, but like as an owner, the owner needs to maintain those high level relationships and spend most of their time, spending time with those people.
Yeah, there's like the it's your average hourly return, right? Like
Yep.
where do you maximize your time? And those relationships can definitely be that. One
Yep.
of the things that we've had conversations about that I also think ties into the brand building is doing the right thing and having quality builds, right? Like, I think that that's one of the things knowing you for years and seeing the your company for years and things like that is that you were so focused on the quality of install that it not only probably protected you from a business perspective in future warranty issues, but it also built that reputation in the industry. What are some of your thoughts around that?
Well, I really learned that. I paid the dumb tax on that. It took 1 year of paying the dumb tax. So like we went, I can't remember if it was 14, 15, 16, somewhere back over a decade ago. We had a major storm. We had really built a heck of a brand. And I remember the sales reps walking through the door going like this, the phone's ringing, they didn't want anymore. Right. It's a good place to be, right?
Yeah.
And we had just sold so much. And so you get in a bad situation as an owner because when you have an uptick like that, that's why roofing, in my opinion, is one of the hardest businesses to run because you can't ever staff enough people when it's slow. But as soon as especially in the storm market, then the storm hits, and all of a sudden you go from zero, just coasting along, to just like this, and you just don't have the staff to support it sometimes. So, like 1 year, it took me 1 year to figure this out. We literally went from zero to hero, and really didn't have enough crews or staff. So we literally went in defense mode, grabbed up a couple of extra crews. Uh, we really didn't have enough project management at the time to oversee them. So we literally done that for 1 year. We were throwing some crews at jobs. I'm not afraid to admit it. It's where I
Mm,
messed up. And then about 2 years later, I think I wrote a few $100,000 worth of checks going back on roofs that had issues. Guess what? Those crews that done those particular jobs were no longer in existence, so I didn't know where they're at. And I just wrote checks and redone some roofs, and I paid a dump tax. And I learned back then that, man, don't take the job if you can't support it from a quality standpoint. So it
mm,
took me a few $100,000 to checks 1 year to make things right from a couple crews we hired to learn that lesson. And we literally paid the dump tax, wrote the checks, done people right, which, by the way, I can tell you stories about how I sold a massive amount of jobs off of doing that because people were like, man,
that's
he's a
right.
trustworthy contractor. That's one thing about it. You're going to make mistakes. You make a mistake, fix it, period. Just make it right. Cost you some money sometimes. So that's where you learn. So we really start focusing on, man, I want somebody sitting on every job site. I want 300 photos of everything. We're going to really spend a lot of resource and time training quality project managers to make sure installs go right and we have the proper documentation, which, by the way, that documentation, I can give you stories, have saved me a ton of times with the crazy homeowners. I can't tell you, like, get photo documentation of everything you do. It's worth putting somebody on a job site and focus on quality. If you will just focus on the day of install, you don't have to be a salesperson. Like,
Mm,
if that quality goes good, they go tell the neighbor. Guess what? When that homeowner is standing out in their yard, talking across the street, this is the best experience I've ever had. And it looks great and it's clean and they've communicated well. Guess what? Just walk over and hand them a contract. Don't say anything. They'll sign it. So I always put that main focus on quality of install. Anybody in Abernathy will tell you I'm a hard case about quality. And today they have some of the best project managers I've ever seen in my life that focus on quality. And and I think the project managers sell as many roofs as the sales guys.
wow.
I mean,
Do
word of
they
mouth, it
have
travels.
word of mouth? Yeah, and so, okay, let's dig into that, because that's interesting. I think that'll be interesting for people to listen to and have a conversation around. Okay, let's talk about, project managers. What is that role in your company? Like, what is that role, and what's their job description, right? What do they do? What are their day-to-day duties? Let's start there.
So let's back up a little bit. I want to back
Okay.
up just a little bit and say all the way up till about that time frame, 15, 16, 17 in there, our sales reps were the project managers. They managed the whole job.
Mm.
What we
Mhm.
learned,
Before we carry on with the episode, let's give a shout out to one of our sponsors. Roofers, let's get real. You're great at building roofs, but are you great at building a steady stream of leads? That's where Job Nimbus Marketing comes in. They know the roofing industry inside and out, and they'll help you dominate Google, Facebook, reputation management, and everything in between. If you want more quality leads, more booked jobs, and more growth, visit the link in the description or the sponsors page on the Roofing Success Podcast website. I talk to contractors every day that feel stuck. Not because they're not working hard, but because they're missing the structure to growth without chaos. Or their culture's falling apart because their team's unclear, unaligned, or just burned out. And when change hits, they're reacting instead of leading because time and priorities aren't under their control. Day 41 Thrive helps to fix that with proven strategies for growth, culture, and leadership that actually work. Ready to thrive beyond the storm? Visit the link in the description or visit the Roofing Success Podcast website on the sponsors page to start your journey today. If you're running roofing crews, you know the Friday afternoon headache. You're stuck chasing down crumpled gas receipts, wondering why the fuel bill is $400 higher than it should be this week. Check out our sponsor, Coast. Coast is perfect for the roofing business owner who's tired of pin sharing and gas station detours. Since it's a Visa, your guys can stop anywhere Visa is accepted, choosing the most efficient route so no more driving 5 miles out of the way just to find a specific brand of pump while the sun is burning daylight. Click the link in the description to get started with Coast today. The Coast Visa commercial credit card is issued by Celtic Bank, subject to credit approval. Results may vary.
we're the project managers. They manage the whole job.
Mm.
What we
Mhm.
learned is sales reps make terrible project managers. They don't want to sit on a job site and watch shingles go down. They want to go sell another job. So, number one, there's a lot of companies do that cradle to grave model. They're probably cutting their sales per rep in half. I think that's a fact. I mean, I've experienced it, I've done it. So, salespeople need to be selling. Project managers need to be the ones that's focused on quality. So, the process is we actually have a process in our business. I think we now as they run HubSpot, and so we have job file playbooks, and basically job file playbooks where it asks the project manager a series of questions and photo documentation that they have to go through on every job to get it to pass. Um, Massive amount of pictures, and even on the sales side, I know it's a little rough for the sales guys, but we ask a lot of questions. We want everything captured. Like if there's a crack in a driveway, I want to know. You know why? Because I replaced driveways over cracks that we didn't create. That's why. And so we document very, very well through the process. Um, all of our sales guys, they're even down to little things. One of the things I learned back in the day are our project managers. When they get done with the job, they got to get in an attic. If it has gas, they got to make sure everything's still connected. Pay the dumb tax. Learn that one, right? A lot of things that guys don't do. I hear contractors all the time now putting on roofs and never do an attic inspection after the job's done to make sure that pipes and things can get pulled apart. And I can tell you, you better do them because you'll end up in a lawsuit. Um,
Uh-huh.
so they have a whole checklist they go through that on that day of install. We have it all booked and automated. A lot of it's automated today, right? Actually, Austin, Austin, he's created
Yep.
basically almost our own CRM inside of CRM that makes it super robust for sales guys to sell all the way through the production process and the project management. Project managers are focused on quality and customer experience. That's how they get graded. There's KPIs behind it and efficiencies. So, like, I'll give you one more nugget. When we went to putting project managers on jobs and training them effectively and then kind of incentivize them a little bit on efficiencies, I can't tell you how many hundreds of squares of shingles a year we saved that didn't get thrown in a dumpster. That's an absolute fact. I mean, hundreds. I helped a guy last year create this process in his business about over a year ago. And he called me and said, dude, you literally saved me over $100,000 in efficiency last year just by
Wow.
putting a process in with this project management team. And then the project managers also, while they're creating this great customer experience with the homeowner, they get incentivized very well if they get a referral or a lead by a neighbor. So again, they bring in sometimes as much business as the sales guys do, or they make it extremely easy for the sales guys to go sell the next job. So we've just kind of created this ultimate customer experience inside the production side. And I think the most important day for the homeowner is the day of install. If your emphasis isn't on the communication on the day of install with somebody there on a job site, and I'm not being mean, that speaks English, that can communicate with the homeowner at a high level, answer questions, and be there for the homeowner, you're messing up. How many times do we get the phone call into the office? These guys showed up at my house, and then I try to talk to them. I can't understand it. They don't understand me. They're not doing what I asked them to do. I had that happen, back in the day. And so we had to go in and fill all those holes and gaps. And so I have guys tell me, well, John, we can't afford to spend $50,000, $60,000 a year in salaries on a project manager. And I'm like, you'll save it in efficiency. So you get to gain efficiency, which pays them, right? And then guess what? Your customer experience goes through the roof. And guess
And
what?
guess what you get from those? That's
And
right.
guess what? Yeah, that's right. You sell more jobs, the business grows.
Yeah.
So anytime you focus on quality, it spreads and the business will grow. You don't have to spend as much money on marketing. You don't have to have sales guys that have to overcome objections of a bad experience from a homeowner. They just sign up. That's how it works.
Yeah. What other things have been the most impactful? So it's the design of the documentation process was critical, it sounds like. Like
And that
the
takes
way that you
time.
guys Yes.
It takes time. Like that wasn't done. Rome wasn't built in a day. Like you basically are building something out, and I can give somebody the framework for it if they want it. And
Yeah.
then you're going in custom to your business and you're filling holes. When you find a hole, you tweak it. You find a hole, you add it. Whatever you got to do until you end up with the ultimate process that streamlines through the business.
Nice. What were some of the most impactful additions you made to that process where you're like, the second we made this, like we were like, whoa, that was a big hole, not a little hole.
Well, I think I covered it I think the number one thing was efficiency.
Got it.
So let me dig a little deeper in that. So I remember walking on a job site, just checking off jobs. I didn't get out there very often once we got scaled up, especially above 8 figures. It was, I was in the office a lot more trying to make sure things were moving in the right direction. But I would sneak out from time to time, on a job site. I was on a job site one day and I noticed, I looked up and the roofers were roofing and they were taking a full shingle on a hip roof and nailing and using the corner of it and throwing it in the dumpster, the rest. And it just hit me. I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys need change on efficiency. We made that switch from that. It would have blown your mind. You wouldn't believe me if I showed how many square shingles we saved that year.
Wow.
It was unreal. And then I think another thing you can do also, like you're always trying to create better behaviors. Maybe you pay a little bit more a square than what the market is, but you only pay on actual surface area of the roof. So I want you to think about that. You're creating behavior. You pay a little more per square, but what you're doing is you're creating behaviors in the crew not to be wasteful. So with most guys, the more they install, the more they waste, the more they get paid. So think about an extra square of shingles. This is an efficiency side that goes out that nobody thinks about. I've talked to tons of people. We never thought about it like that. That gets thrown in a dumpster or wasted because they're just throwing big scraps away and stuff every day. A square of shingles. So now you're paying the crew for that square, plus you're paying the material bill. How much is that nowadays? What is that? $225 plus a square.
Yeah.
And if you save 2 square a day per job, what's that? 500. You got 3 jobs a day. That's $1,500 a day. We literally, the net profit went through the roof and it created behaviors throughout the company on efficiency. And it saved a lot of wasted material. So that's one of the main things I always focus on with companies is how do we get that project management side built into your operations to where you can start to create even more efficiency than what you're paying the project manager, and it turns into profit. So you get the profit and the quality. But I think that
I
was one of
love
the
that.
biggest things that we
Yeah.
called out that literally brought a lot more profit to the bottom line.
One of the things that I take from that is it's the intentionality of creating incentives for your team that everyone is working in the same direction,
Yep.
right? Like everyone's working towards the same goal, and wherever you find an inefficiency like that, it's that means that the incentive is out of alignment. And what you did is you went back and you said, okay, how do we align this incentive? And this is how we align the incentive. And all of a sudden, boom! Now we're all rowing in the same
We're all going the
direction.
same
Like
direction, right?
that's right.
And we do
Yeah.
profit sharing is what we do. So like, our team understands internally and we include everybody in it. We
Mhm.
actually built out this very phenomenal, robust profit sharing program that's insanely good. I absolutely love it. So, everybody, depending on your level in the company, are you a VP, director, manager, associate, you get a multiple profit sharing depending on the level you're at. So it creates
Yep.
where people want to move up, right? And then everything is built off of, obviously, s- the main things is obviously number one, selling more, trying to sell a little bit more, margin, right? So you got the front end of the business that's always trying to figure out how to get that margin up. So as the margin comes up, we have thresholds month over month of, if we grow by 2% margin, the bonus is more. It's a percentage of revenue, right?
Mm.
So you're looking at your sales guys on the front end, you're always trying to work with them on how to create more value to grow margins in the business, right? Be more profitable, right? On the back end of your production team, right? Operations on the back side, it's really focused a lot on efficiencies. How do we run more efficient? How do we turn money faster? People don't think about that. You get clogged up pipelines of money. Well, that affects EBITDA, it affects cash flow, it affects profitability. So they're always trying, and it's crazy how we went from one time once we developed this profit sharing program, how we went from having these ARs that were out sometimes in the millions to how that just began to shrink down because they understood month by month, and we have one that's month over month. We have one that's a yearly. How they started to figure out ways to make cash move faster so that they
Mm.
could be more profitable. So you have them all bought in and they get to share as the business grows, they get to make more money
Yeah.
too. So it creates
That's
alignment. Everybody's focused on their initiatives throughout the company every day. I wish we had a lot of time. I'd
so
go through the whole thing, but it's phenomenal.
yeah,
It creates a machine.
so the profit sharing program was one of the biggest things that you've implemented that has gotten that alignment with the team.
100%.
Um, yeah. And that's fantastic. And I'm sure that has that evolved? What year did you implement that?
We reset. We had it back. I don't know. It's been several years. We've been doing stuff like that.
Yep.
That's a hard question. Exactly when? I would
Yeah.
say it was probably back. We started looking at doing some of that stuff back in like 2018, 19.
Okay.
And then when Austin and I pulled together and merged the business, we obviously created a new one for Top King, which has just been absolutely phenomenal. For a matter of fact,
Yep.
I think they just paid it out this week for March, I think. And I'm telling you, it gets people engaged because they see the opportunity for them. It's one thing to sit in a desk, I'll tell you, and have a salary, and no matter how hard you work, you never grow, right? Unless the boss comes along and wants to give you a raise. But when you have a base salary with profit sharing, and if you really kill it this year and do your part, and the rest of the team does their part, right, you could increase that by 50% pretty easy.
Yeah. Definitely have wait, 50%, that's a lot.
I mean, if you hit the right
Like
goals, I mean,
that's
they're
right.
staged for it this year. They've got 5 locations with every one of them have hailstorms just hit. So
Yep.
it's all a team effort. I mean, if you hit the right numbers, you hit the right goals, you're doing the right things that you've been taught. You're looking at data. I mean, I have everybody in the business over here. Everybody in the business is looking at data nonstop. Everything's data driven.
Mm.
If you want to open a new location, in the roofing space, you better understand data at a very high level because that's how you're going to control it. If not, hey Johnny, how you doing this week? Right? That's what it becomes. You got to understand data from front to back, and you have to have different data points that your team understands. So we spend a lot of time teaching our team how to react to data.
Yeah,
Homeowner
that's what I think
experience,
is the
homeowner
yes.
experience, right? Like Well, if I'm not calling homeowners and asking a series of questions and creating a spreadsheet and understanding the customer experience, I can't improve it. We react as owners. This particular person gave us a bad review. We're going to go chew our team out. Well, guess what? We don't have to do that. We'd have to do it over here. We look at data and understand how we're performing in all these different areas.
I love that, being proactive in gathering the data also, it sounds
Get the
like,
data
right?
and then analyze it. You know what? I've seen
Yep.
companies that are really good at pulling data and they never look at it.
Oh, yeah.
It's
For
crazy
sure.
to me.
And then there's other ones. There's a lot of people too that you mentioned this one. I think that you have to have data points that you're measuring where you have a lever. And I think a lot of times people are they'll look at data that they don't have levers on. They look at too much at lagging indicators.
Yep.
Like you said, like, oh, we got that bad review, right? So they're focused on this lagging indicator of the bad review. But it was something during the process that happened, right? That created that bad review. From the sales side, what if the sales rep didn't get the estimate to the homeowner fast enough? Or what if they didn't call them for 5 days and the homeowner was like, "Well, man, what are these guys doing? I don't even know it." Like those types of things, the communication piece
It's the most important.
pre is the most important, but
It's
if you
where we
don't have
fell.
any, and if you don't have data on that to be to be able to pull those levers and say, "Hey, you guys, man, we're falling behind on these calls. You're not making the pre-job calls, the post-job calls. You're not doing, like, if you don't have data on those things also, that those are more leading indicators of that homeowner experience,
So
right?
you've
So
been, you've
that's
been
what
on
yeah.
you've been on the marketing side.
Oh
It's
yeah.
funny. You're speaking my language. So you've been on the marketing side. So something that I've learned, and I'm not an expert in marketing. That's something I'm not an expert in marketing. I'm just a long-term contractor that's learned a lot, right? So one of the things I can tell you with me coaching companies is they're always wanting to go spend more money on marketing. And what I found is they need to get better at speed to lead and getting in front of homeowners. Like they don't need to spend more on marketing. They need to get better on their internal process. Like
That's
you'd be
right.
surprised when I went in and done some really deep dives into some marketing data for a couple of companies last year. In both instances, it's like you're throwing away all kinds of opportunity. You don't need to spend more on
Yeah.
marketing, but what they do, they go spend more on marketing, and
They
they still
spend
can't
more on
service those
marketing.
homeowners. They're not. There's the
We
speed of the leads away is really messed up. So there has to be a process for all those things, and you have to collect the data, and then somebody has to review it. And you got to understand: is it a rep that's causing you a problem? Is it the process of getting things communicated that's the problem? You got to figure out those problems, or you can't scale. What you can't measure, you cannot scale. It's impossible.
Yeah, it's impossible. And the biggest lever that I've found over some time now, and I did a podcast episode at a solo podcast about it not too long ago, about speed to lead and about that is the biggest lever that gets missed,
Yep,
is that. It's
100%.
that intake phone call. Selling the appointment is the first sale. Selling the job is the second sale.
Yep.
Without that first sale of the appointment and getting the amount of information, our intake calls are 7-minute on average. I
Mhm.
think it's 7 minutes and 20 seconds on average.
Right.
Like, we are collecting data at that point of conversation, right? Why did you call us? What issue are you having? Have you had anyone else out? What is going to make you choose the right, like, how are you going to make your decision?
Yeah,
We're not asking that at the kitchen table. We're asking that on the initial appointment set. Like,
yeah, and then
I
you're
want
handing
that
it off.
data now.
You hand it off, and then nobody does anything with it half the time. I mean,
It
you know,
probably, but then that's where you have a lever, right? That's when you have the lever of, is the team using this data? Are
that's
we,
right.
look, you get this sales brief that I send you on every appointment that gets booked, and it has all of this data. It's all this ammunition to help you serve that homeowner better and have that truly, consultative sales approach.
That's
right?
all I
Like if
believe in
you
anymore.
and so when you all of that data gets built into the consultative sale, right? And so I'm passing off, I'm handing the baton, and I'm handing the baton perfectly. If I don't hand the baton off perfectly, there's a big gap there, and that marketing spend just falls through that gap fast,
Yep. Your cost
fast.
per lead
And
goes up. Your cost per acquisition really goes up.
it's your co
And
it's your cost per acquisition is really
yep.
where it goes off the rail. So a lot of times, and we can even look at close percentage, right? A lot of times, they'll focus on leads, number of leads, and close percentage on their sales team. But boy, there's a lot that happens in between there.
Yep. There's a lot of
There's a
misses.
lot. There's a lot of gaps, a lot of holes that can be plugged from your analogy earlier, right? Like it's amazing what you can do focusing your intentions on that. Who answers the phone, what they say, how fast they respond, how many times does your phone calls go to voicemail on a daily basis,
Right.
right? How long does it take to pick up the phone? How many minutes is spent on an intake call? What questions are being asked on that call and what questions are being answered? When is the appointment getting set? How is the expectation of what's going to happen at that appointment given to the homeowner so that they understand? Then the baton gets passed again, right? Now we're passing the baton to the sales rep. So now the sales rep and the appointment setter are holding that baton. Now that sales rep needs to reach out as fast as
As
humanly
fast as you
possible,
can.
right? And start to create that experience. I don't care if that appointment isn't for a week.
Yep. Get the initial
It,
conversation, start to build a
get the
relationship.
Yes, this is who I am. I'll be out there, and then the language continues, right? The language continues from your marketing to the intake call to what the sales rep is saying, and that trust just innately gets built. And it's the to me that I can rant forever on that, man. That one right there. And it's because we served hundreds of contractors.
Yep.
Hundreds of contractors, and I've seen it all, man. And it's the ones that had that. Our friend John Bros, man, like MHI was fantastic.
Fantastic at that. Yep.
Right? They were fantastic at that, and so I was fortunate I got to see it from that angle, and I got to see other contractors that didn't do a good job of that, and I got to see who progressed and who failed and who was mad at me,
Yep. You learn
right?
though. I mean, you
Like,
learn. We all make mistakes, and that's how we get better. I mean, you have to
that's
make
right.
mistakes in order to
You
learn
have
from
to.
them and get better. I was going to add something to that. You kept talking about communication and customer experience. And so on the TAMKO side, I have guild quality. I work with
Mm.
them. So they're calling
Yep,
and interviewing
yep.
homeowners every time there's one of our enhanced warranties gets filed.
Surveys. Yep.
Do a survey. So it's pretty neat when you start really digging into that data. Speaking of data, and you've got at this point thousands of homeowner feedback
Mhm.
from contractors. And here's one thing that's unique: anytime, most of the issues that occur are two things: professionalism and communication. Communication actually being the top. It's those two things. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
So what's unique about it is if you fail in communication, it's almost always do not recommend from the homeowner. It's weird. It's
Yep.
like I start seeing trends in data. So it's like it shows me the number one thing the homeowners want is communicated with well, and they want professionalism and cleanliness on the job site. So you could have also, I'll add this, you could have all these bad 1-star like feedback things from the homeowner in those areas, but then on the install it could be perfect. And I couldn't figure that out. And I'll tell you why, because homeowners don't know what good looks like.
They don't.
So they just
They
assume
have
it's
no
good.
clue.
So I think, for me, it was always quality. Now, the quality side of install is more so than it is about the homeowner. It's about protecting my business from having to go back.
Yes.
And anytime you go back costs money, right? I don't want to go
That's
back.
right.
That's the number one thing. The communication, cleanliness, and professionalism is about getting the next job, in my opinion. Taking care. So I think that's the biggest focus as far as, hey, do I want to sell the next job and keep people happy? Learn how to build processes of communicating at a high level. Make sure all your team looks the same and presentable and that they're professional on giving their presentation to the homeowner. because homeowners actually do care about that, by the way. and and make sure that on the day of install, it's as clean as it can possibly get. Do a walk around with the homeowner. Make sure they sign off. I make them all sign off saying, hey, they did a walk around. It looks well. We have a system of checks and balances because sometimes we're doing 8, 10, 12 roofs a day, right?
That's right.
The owner, you can't get there. So it's always sucks when you're an owner, and I've experienced this, and you've worked your little heart to death to make sure and show up on every job. Then the business grows to another level. Then you have to start relying on people. And those people, speaking of hiring again, are not reliable. And they cream your reputation within a couple of days because they go out and do some things that aren't right. So you have to have the checks and balances, data points, system processes, and follow-ups to maintain that that level of integrity and service that you brought as an owner to the industry maintains itself over the years. If you do not have all those things in place, the business will continually do this.
And I'm gonna add to this, John. It kind of from the beginning of our conversation and building the right culture and building the right team and hiring the right sales reps, and this is the cycle of life, right? This is the circle of life in the contracting space or in business in general, right? The better reputation that you have for all of these things, the better sales reps you attract.
Yep.
Right. The better the better your culture is, the more your team gets engaged and involved, and the better you align your team into what everyone's doing and pointing it in the same direction. The more homeowners get served on a high level, and more and it just circles back, and it becomes this, like, it takes a lot to build momentum.
We always
Right?
talk to, speaking, I mean, I'm speaking your language in this area too. So like I always tell our people, always have, if you're a manager, you're literally the people that work under you are your customer. And that's all the way to the top. We have people at vice president level, HR or different departments in the business, right? And I always train them. I'm like, look, I'm a servant leader. You got to be careful with servant leadership. You can't be one of those ones that gets walked over, but you got to hold your ground. But I always train them that really what you are as a manager is your job is to serve the people below you. So they are your customer. And I always believed if my managers treat the people under them like it's their customer and serve them, they're going to go serve my customers the right way. And it works. I mean, the success rate is very, very high when you treat people right. And I think the main thing is, again, you got to make your team feel like they're a team. They got to be part of what's happening. You got to get them where they engage in what's happening. You got to celebrate the wins. And like I said, I think that's one area that fails is like when we really sat down and really start taking a deep dive years ago, it's like, how do we create data points that we can look at, that we can teach the team to follow, that shows them their success in every single aspect of the business? If you have a job in the business, whether you're on the operations team, whatever, you have a certain data points that we're looking at to see if month over month or year over year, you're increasing and getting better. And that's what they focus on. That's literally the realm that we live in.
And that's it.
And it works.
And now it works, and it works and works and works. And you continuously make improvements and continuously make tweaks, and it's always SOPs or living documents, and like we're always just listening for better ways to do things, and it just keeps going, man. And that's a great way. That's a great way to find success. Jon Abernathy, man, it's been fun today. I'm excited to work with you in the Roofing Strong Alliance, and this has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the Roofing Success Podcast. For more valuable content, visit roofingsuccesspodcast.com. While there, check out our sponsors for exclusive offers, shop for merchandise, and sign up for our newsletter for industry updates and tips. Also, join the Roofing Success Facebook group to connect with other professionals and stay updated on the latest trends. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. Your support helps us continue to bring you top industry insights. The website link is in the description. Thanks for listening.